Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are going to continue covering the speeches of different foreign ministers in front of the UN General Assembly, the 80th session. Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati addressed the gathering and he renewed the Egyptian stance regarding the Israeli genocide war in Gaza and the full rejection of the displacement of the Palestinian people and liquidating the Palestinian cause, and also accused the international community of the double standards with which they are facing what's going on in Gaza. To shed more light on the speech of our top diplomat, in addition to the speeches of other top diplomats which took place in New York throughout the session, we are very much delighted to have with us via phone Dr. Mohamed Othman, Professor of International Relations. Thank you very much for being with us, sir. A very good evening.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Othman, let's start with the renewal of Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati in front of the UN General Assembly gathering, the Egyptian firm stance regarding the Palestinian cause and the full rejection of the displacement of the Palestinian people. And he also said that without the two-state solution, no peace can be achieved, and there is no peaceful settlement can be implemented on the ground in the Middle East region as a whole. If you please elaborate on that.
Indeed, Dr. Badr Abdulati, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, has reiterated Egypt's stern stance on the Palestinian cause, reaffirming Egypt's commitment to the two-state solution as the only exit or the only solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, meaning that without the establishment of both an Israeli and a Palestinian state side by side on the June 4th, 1967 borders, peace would be an impossible task in the Middle East. So this is something that Egypt has been stressing over and over and over, especially that now it pertains to the current war in Gaza, which basically Israel aims through this war to basically liquidate the Palestinian cause in its entirety, not only through preventing the establishment of a Palestinian state, but also by attempting to remove the Palestinians and forcefully displace them out of their homes, especially in Gaza, but also in the West Bank, in an expansionist project that the Israeli Prime Minister and his government are pursuing at the moment. So Egypt, of course, is one of the main impediments that is impeding this Israeli project, which unfortunately enjoys to a huge extent American support, even though that seems to be slightly changing with the indications of a serious American initiative to end this war. However, of course, we cannot at this moment assess the seriousness of this American initiative. The Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati, before the United Nations General Assembly, has reaffirmed the message that the ceasefire is a necessity, that the delivery of humanitarian aid is a must, and that also any arrangements for the post-war in Gaza has to involve the return of the Palestinian Authority, and also has to exclude entirely the idea of the displacement of the Palestinians.
And also he hailed the recognition of the Palestinian state by a number of big powers in the world, Western powers. For the first time they did it. And he said that this is a correct or a right step in the right path. But, for example, on the other side of the coin, you would find Sergei Lavrov, the Russian top diplomat, mocking at that and saying, what were you waiting for? And maybe you were waiting until there is nothing to recognize and the lost Palestinian already fell martyred. How do you see this, and how do you see there should be reaction from the international community regarding the recognition of a Palestinian state, and in the same time the arrogance of the Israeli side saying that no Palestinian state is going to be found on the ground?
I do not necessarily see a contradiction between what Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati has said and what Mr. Lavrov has said. Indeed, Badr Abdulati says that this is a step in the right direction. Of course, it's an overdue step, as the Russian Foreign Minister made very clear, and it's not enough. And Egypt also has indicated that this is not sufficient in order to further Palestinian rights. What is sufficient and what is needed at this point is that the international community needs to back its steps with concrete action. The recognition is a very symbolic step. It has sheer symbolic value. However, on the ground, it has little to no effect, because the Israelis, as we just said, are eviscerating Palestinian existence in what remains of historical Palestine, which is the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza. So now the international community needs to move and impose actual sanctions on Israel in order to pressure it. And I think even though Mr. Lavrov does have a point, but I have no clue why Russia does not start by imposing itself sanctions on Israel. Russia has a very strong, a deep relationship with Israel to an extent. Russia, of course, is very biased to Palestinian rights and has always been an ardent supporter of Palestinian rights, yet the current Russian state did not really take any decisive action against Israel, as opposed, for example, as what the Soviet Union used to do, which used to support Palestine at a much bigger scale than what the current Russian state does at the moment. So I think more action is needed from Europe, from Russia, from China. The entirety of the international community has to come.
More action is needed. Amen to that, sir. But let me here go to a German decision which was taken about 2 months ago to ban the exports of weapons to Israel. And today, the German top diplomat Johann Wadephil said that despite the fact that Israeli security is one of the priorities of Germany, yet there is no peace, or the two-state solution is the only way to achieve peace in the Middle East. How do you see mentioning the two-state solution by Western powers, this time approximately in every single speech by all Western top diplomats addressing the 80th UNGA?
Indeed, even the European states that refuse to recognize Palestine, like Germany and Italy, and who enjoy a very cordial relationship with Israel, do acknowledge the necessity of supporting the two-state solution and also stopping the carnage in Gaza. However, that does not exonerate Germany, for example, from its despicable stance on Gaza. Friedrich Merz, the current German chancellor, went on the record publicly twice, saying that what Israel is doing in Gaza is doing the dirty work that we cannot do. Of course, this despicable language is unacceptable and unforgivable, to be completely honest with you, my dear colleague. And also, Germany, even though it suspended some arms shipments and some arms contracts with Israel, however, the entirety of European exports, military exports to Israel, only account for about 7% of Israel's annual military needs. So they are negligible and they are ineffective. They do know that what they're doing does not really have that much of an effect on Israel. What really needs to be done is a decisive decision to impose very strenuous and strong sanctions on Israel, agonizing sanctions, not only symbolic sanctions on a certain individual or on a few settlers, actual sanctions on the Israeli economy, since Israel, one of their biggest trade partners is the European Union and Europe in general. So if Europe decides to take decisive action, this will counterbalance the unlimited American support that is given or accorded to Israel by the United States.
Also, our top diplomat Badr Abdelati spoke about Egypt's readiness to host a conference for the early recovery and to the reconstruction of Gaza once we reach a ceasefire in the Strip. Meaning, it's not only we want to reach a ceasefire and that's it. No, there is a will, whether from Egypt, from the Arab, from the Islamic nation, from the friendly nations, to reconstruct Gaza and to have the Strip back to life. How do you see also mentioning this, sir, in front of all those big powers in the UN General Assembly?
The Egyptian foreign ministers mentioned that and alluded to that because Egypt has conceived a comprehensive plan of reconstruction of Gaza a few months ago. And it proposed this plan to an emergency Arab summit or an extraordinary Arab summit here in Cairo. It was adopted by the Arab League and then adopted by the Islamic organization, Islamic Cooperation Organization. And also afterwards, it was even welcomed by and supported by the European Union, by the African Union, by the Global South in general, by China and by Russia. So the entire world supports Egypt's reconstruction plan, which has become the Arab Islamic reconstruction plan, which, with the exception of Israel and the United States, who oppose this Egyptian vision. So Egypt has conceived a huge vision and has something on the ground and has the necessary tools in order to apply these measures to reconstruct and rehabilitate and aid the Gaza Strip in its early recovery stage when this war eventually stops. And this is something that has to be taken into account. And I think that the Trump plan that is being proposed, the Trump initiative, is taking many elements of this Egyptian reconstruction plan into account. And it seems that there is now a very serious dialogue between the United States and many Arab stakeholders, including Egypt, of course, and Qatar and Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, in addition to other Islamic players like Indonesia, Turkey, and Pakistan and Jordan, which means that all of these countries together are attempting to conceive a vision for the reconstruction. So Egypt is ready to basically be the patron of this entire reconstruction project by hosting this reconstruction conference in order to gather funds. And even President Trump in the initiative, it mentions that there will be an international fund for the gathering of donations and aid and grants for the reconstruction of Gaza. So Egypt is trying to support this direction that advocates for peace, that advocates also for the preservation of Palestinian existence on the land of Palestine, which requires the reconstruction
that advocates
of
for peace, for humanity, for the international community to shoulder the responsibility of stopping this chaotic situation and the Israeli genocide war, which killed until the moment more than 66,000 Palestinians, mostly women and children. Well, Dr. Mohamed Othman, Professor of International Relations, thank you very much for your input, sir, and have a very good night. Well, right after the short break, we are going to return back with more. Stay tuned only on Nile TV International.